very much for having me here. I'm going to open up my computer here that has my notes. The organizations that invited me to come here today probably had no idea, Mr. Matthews, Mr. Bennett, that I'm an academic first, even before I am a diplomat. So this presentation tonight is to be full of facts. Please bear with me. I've come with information. It might take me a little while, but if you have questions, if you have comments, we're a small enough group here tonight that if you want to interrupt with a question, feel free. I would like to use the flow and be interactive to the extent that I can, but I do have a lot of information I want to impart. I have not had the chance to talk to any other mothers who have lost children. I have been doing this for a little over a year now, just trying to figure it out. The State Department has, counselors who come and talk to you, but they've never counseled anybody who's gone through what I've gone through. Because I've been overseas, I came back from Mozambique. My last posting was in Mozambique. I came back from Mozambique on the 2nd of August. And so one of my goals this year is actually find some grief counseling and see if I can connect that way. But the call to service is what has enabled me, like you, to sort of pull together, and push on, because nothing can bring our children back. But what we can do, room for more research, but largely we know what to do. We know what it's going to take. I'm going to relay some of what we know tonight. I'm going to provide you with some examples of why we know it, and then I'm going to charge all of us who talked about to determine what action, what role we will play, whether we're elected officials, whether there are police, whether there's mothers, whether there are pastors, the NAACP, whoever we are, whatever role we're in, as you said, whatever path we're on, what is it that we're going to do? Each of us, of course, have multiple roles. We are parents, we are aunts and uncles, we are members of our churches and other organizations, we are neighbors, we are friends, and then we have our professional roles. So we will talk a bit about what is it that we can do. We can, in fact, contribute to healing and curing our communities of violence. My message that I have learned, now I've been in this process for about a month now, and one of the things that has come to me is that violence is learned. People acquire their behaviors primarily through unconscious copying, and this social learning occurs from person to person, from group to group, within families, across communities, and it's a disease. It's a disease that can be both diagnosed and cured. Now, I'm no expert in this. I'm a learned layman, as I said, and I feel a necessity to spread the word. And so I'm here tonight to spread the word. I'm here tonight to learn as well. But let me provide you with a little more background. Thank you for the kind introduction. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to give you a little bit more background on how I got here, tell a little bit more of my story. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. My mother is here, and I'm proud to say I think she did a great job raising me. Thank you very much. Her and my father were encouraging parents who let me know that I could do anything I wanted. But our family was a regular family. We had regular problems, and we also had regular positive attributes. I don't think there's anything particularly unusual about both the positive nature about my family and a few little problems we had here and there. I went to school, and she made sure that I went to school. I got scholarships to very good schools. I was very fortunate coming out of Chicago public schools. And I heard violence must stop. That we do know. And that's one. Well, one thing is we can't keep doing what we've been doing. Violence is a result of patterns of thought and behavior which are highly resistant to change. Yet we keep thinking that more of the same will solve the problem, when in fact the evidence shows that it is worsening the problem. We commonly turn to our politicians and our leaders, and we ask, we beg them, please do
something about this. We passed laws to crack down on those who cause harm to our loved ones, and this begins a positive feedback loop. As tighter legislation is passed and arrests increase, as police crack down, the incarceration rate rises. The damage, this incarceration of so many people damages our communities. It damages our families. It damages our economy. It costs a lot of money in taxpayer dollars. All this policing and courts and prisons and detention. We need to do something to break the pattern. Not that this loop isn't necessary, but it must not be the primary focus of what we want to do about violence in our communities. We have to interrupt the pattern. And this interruption of a pattern is very much like an interruption of disease. So I've done a lot of reading, and I've read the words of the King of Peace, I've read the words of the Prince of Peace, and I've read the words of
some way of nurturing the seeds for new culture, a new culture of peace in our communities and in the lives of those with whom we come into daily contact. We must sow and nurture a culture of peace every day in every way that we interact. So my journey is to speak with groups like p.a.i.n and groups like the other mothers here to find out what practical steps are we taking and what practical steps are still needed. I also want to talk to you about what is going on internationally, and hopefully that will help inform your work. So, the UN Security Council spends a lot of time talking about war and peace. And there are organizations that deal with the movement of narcotics. There are other organizations that deal with international law enforcement, and those are all very important. But one organization I have found has really focused in on what my topic is tonight, and that is changing the culture of peace. And that is the World Health Organization. And the World Health Organization, the next one, please. The World Health Organization has broken it down in this way. They said that you have to deal with the culture of the individual. You have to deal with the culture of the family. You have to deal with the culture of the community and the society. Each one in their turn, and none of them can be left out. So, the information that the World Health Organization, including the United States, who we are part of coming up with this, they have a plan of action. The plan of action is based upon some research and facts. So I'll talk a little bit about some of those research and facts. Next, please. Violence accounts for nearly 1.4 million deaths per year worldwide. This corresponds to about 3,800 people killed every day. Violence is a significant health, human rights, and human development problem. Suicide and homicide account for more than 80% of violence-related deaths worldwide. So our brothers and sisters who are worried about war, it's important. That's only 6% of the problem in terms of people dying from violence. 58% suicide. As we well know, people commit suicide in many ways. They commit suicide violently. There are people we know who are committing suicide slowly through their acts and what they're doing, knowing that they're putting themselves in the kind of danger they're putting themselves. A lot of that is their own hopelessness. So there's that kind of suicide, and then there's violent suicide. That's 58%. 36% of those who die, of those, 3,800 people a day, are killed by someone else. 90% of the deaths due to violence occur in low and middle income countries. And that's one reason why this is a Department of State issue. 90% happens in developing countries, middle income countries like Brazil, India. The other 10% happens in countries like our own. But as we know, within these countries, the highest death rates occur among people living in the poorest communities. So poverty and violence do correspond greatly, for reasons we'll talk about later. The violence mainly impacts young, economically productive people. I don't know how many of you guys know about the global death rates among men aged 15 to 44. For every young person killed by violence, an estimated 20 to 40 receive injuries and receive hospital treatment. It's a huge impact on our health systems, violence. Among people under 25 years, for every suicide, 100 young people attempt. We must prevent self-inflicted violence as well. The health impact of violence is not limited to physical injury. Long-term effects can include depression, mental disorders, chronic pain, unwanted pregnancy, HIV and AIDS, and other sexually transmitted infections. Children who are victims of violence have a higher risk of alcohol and drug abuse, smoking, and high-risk sexual behavior. This leads, decades later, to chronic diseases such as heart disease, cancer. Violence is preventable, and its impacts can be reduced. If you don't hear anything else I say today, I want you to remember that. Violence is preventable, and its impacts can be reduced. There are strategies the World Health Organization has provided as key strategies to deal with the underlying causes. Low-level education, harsh and inconsistent parenting, poverty, unemployment, and social norms that support violence are the major indicators. In Ethiopia, I went back to Ethiopia and I would tell people this story. I said, so what do you think? Why do you think it is that South Africa is so dangerous and Ethiopia is not? And they say, well, it's the differences. It's the inequality that exists. It's the fact that the poor are not just among the poor are among a wealth, a sea of riches. And that those feelings of not being a part of, being taken away from, being not included, that make all the difference. So we need to get at these roots. And so what kinds of things get at the roots? Next one. All right, so the World Health Organization says that we have to get at the individual, family, community, and society. So violence prevention programs in schools and communities focus on individuals' work and what kinds of things are key. Key is preschool enrichment for 3 to 5-year-olds. Key, life skills training and social development for 6 to 18-year-olds. Assisting high-risk adolescents and young adults to complete school and pursue courses of higher education and vocational training. Those are key. Next. The next key is promoting positive, nurturing relationships in families. Training for parents on child development, on nonviolent discipline, and problem-solving skills is absolutely key. Homeschool partnerships are key. Mentoring programs are key. Mentoring, not just everybody. Everybody needs a mentor. I need a mentor. Who doesn't? But our highest risk youth need mentors. The ones hardest to mentor need mentors the most. What kind of community-wide programs has the research shown make all the difference? And this may be long, but believe me, it's not nearly as long as reading all the data and the facts behind why these are key. So I'm skipping all that. All right. Community-wide programs, what kinds work? You must have more child care facilities of quality available. Quality child care. It kind of goes back a little bit to early preschool for 3 and 5-year-olds. But those preschool programs for 3 and 5-year-olds are about the quality of the program itself at that individual child level. And so just having a kid in a playgroup is not the same thing as having a quality child care facility. And so those are two different things that we're talking about here. Making sure the child does in fact have access to early childhood education, but then make sure that early childhood education is of good quality. Even more important than in the States we're a little more advanced on this point, but all over the world, as we're seeing a lot of the violence is happening in India, addressing gender norms and attitudes is key. But even here, we have big gender issues. In my own case, the person who killed my son was caught. I'm pretty sure he is the person who killed my son because he confessed. And now he's saying the room's too cold, but we think the confession's going to hold. His first attorney, public defender he had was a woman, a really powerful woman. The prosecutor told me, because I was overseas during this time, so I haven't been able to go to court every day until I got here in August, and I've been to court 4 times since I got here 2nd of August. And she said, he had a really good defender, this powerful woman. He didn't like her. He said a lot of these men have problems with powerful women. And so what he's done is he got a new one. And he's perfectly okay here. But what we do have to do is improve school settings, teacher practices, school policies, and security. At the community level, those are the most important things, according to the World Health Organization. At a society level, at the level that none of us can control in our own communities, through our own local school boards and how we determine how things are going to work out, reducing alcohol availability and misuse is key. We can reduce it in lots of ways. In the third world, one of the easiest ways to reduce it would be to increase the price. One of the cheapest things you can buy in the market is alcohol in most third world countries. Here it's much better in terms of, but cheap alcohol, accessible alcohol, and when those things change in communities, and they've shown it in Brazil, in lots of places, crime drops. Reducing access to lethal means, guns, knives, in some communities it's things like pesticides, it's things like access to acids of various sorts. All kinds of lethal means are used in violent acts, and we must reduce access to lethal weapons. And once again, at a big social level, we must promote gender equality. So the UN has outlined a practical program of action for building sustaining peaceful societies. But what about the places that are experiencing raging levels of violence now? Where has this disease taken hold? What do we do? Well, what we do is we interrupt the cycle of violence. We interrupt it through a concerted effort of key people in the lives of those who perpetrate violence. We must interrupt violence through the concerted effort of key people who are in the lives of those who perpetrate violence. Who are those key people? Those key people are primarily their peers. Primarily, as a mother, we can talk to those who might perpetrate, but we see our own children through a different lens. As a pastor, we might talk to people who might perpetrate. As a brother, we might talk to someone who might perpetrate, like better, as closer to a peer. But the evidence has shown that when it's peer-to-peer intervention in the perpetration of violence, that works far more in terms of preventing specific incidents of violence in a specific community. So there are a number of models that use this particular methodology. And one that I've come to work with is called p.a.i.n. In New Orleans, that same organization has been known as Ceasefire. In Chicago, they're known as Ceasefire, now Pure Violence. In New York, they're Pure Violence. In Baltimore, they're Take Back the Streets. But it's the same organization. And so I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about what that model is about and why I think it might be something useful here. So they have a three-pronged approach. You interrupt the transmission, you identify and change the thinking of the highest potential transmitters, and then you change group norms. So the model employs people who are recruited from the community, who are trained as professional healthcare workers, and they are called violence interrupters. They use a specific method of interruption to locate potentially lethal, ongoing conflicts and respond with a variety of conflict mediation techniques, both to prevent imminent violence and to change the norms in the community. These people are known to high-risk people, and they have possibly even been gang members or spent time in prison, and they have made a change in their own lives and are ready to contribute, turn away from crime and help others turn away as well. These interrupters receive very specific training on the methods for detecting potential shooting events. They receive training in mediating conflicts and for keeping safe in these dangerous situations. Their role is to identify and change the thinking of the highest potential perpetrators of crime, or transmitters of crime. This, I was talking a little bit earlier to the press who was asking me about this. They said, well, how much does this cost? I said, well, prevention, as we always know, is a lot cheaper than the outcome. There's a very small, the resources are there because it is less than 2% of what the prosecution of crime costs to prevent it. It's very, very small money it costs to have hire interveners to put together programs at the community level, like I'm talking here, versus the other alternatives. So these outreach workers do cost money. They change norms. They change what is happening in these communities. They are outreach workers who act as mentors. They see each person that they've targeted multiple times every week. They convey a message of rejecting the use of violence, and they assist people to obtain the needed services like job training and drug abuse counseling. These workers are available to their clients during critical moments. When a client needs someone to help him avoid a relapse into criminal and violent behavior, they're there. The participants in the program are at highest risk. In order to have access and credibility, these employees are culturally appropriate workers. They're similar to what's called indigenous workers in the public health field. In order to have a lasting change, though, the norms of the community have to change. And how do we change them? We have multiple messengers in the community who say the same thing over and over again. You're abundantly heard regularly. You know the importance of that. And that's what will happen. There are other things that are essential. And these are the things that cost money. These are the things that take resources. Data and monitoring have to be employed to measure and provide constant feedback to the system. Extensive training is necessary to ensure that our workers properly carry out their duties, both initial training and then follow-up trainings every few months, and regular meetings to look at techniques. What's really working? What's not working? There's a partnership that these programs have with local hospitals, so the workers are notified immediately of gunshot wound victims who are admitted to emergency rooms. These notifications enable workers to respond quickly, often at the hospital itself, to prevent retaliations. The next one, please. So, like any disease, violence can, in fact, be prevented. And it has to be interrupted. But in order to do so, it has to be a unified effort. It's the same thing. All right, it has to be a unified effort. Collaboration is the key. I'm sure that there are a number of groups here that are dedicated to, nonviolent cause here in Pensacola and Montgomery County. There are official institutions that are charged regarding our health and safety and bringing our kids up right. We've got health organizations, police departments, schools, religious organizations. But if we have divided initiatives, if everybody's doing their own thing, even toward a common cause, you can have some success, but it'll fall short of what's possible if there really is collaboration. A multilateral framework for working together toward an agreed upon end. That takes work and time in itself. So we don't have the extra time. Everybody barely has enough time to do or resources to do what we're doing. Whether it's a mentoring program, after-school program, or working with bereaved mothers, we hardly have the resources. It takes extra resources to collaborate. And I tell you, it's worth it. That's part of what we did in these calls, and it made all the difference. We made one organization where we collaborated to make sure that the resources were being put to the best use. If someone has a great idea for, a chess club for the gifted and talented kids, so the gifted and talented kids can have the extra, well, that's great. But really, we got to focus on this set of things the World Health Organization says is needed. And chess clubs for the gifted and talented is good, but not priority. So that's really my message. My suggestion is this community, like all communities that have been successful with making the most, find a way to collaborate. You may have one, but I know that's key. I can't tell you what your program will be, but I can tell you that there are individual actions we can take. There are individual actions that we can take regardless. We don't have to wait for big programs. We don't have to wait for policies to change. There are things we can do today. There are things that we can do in our own lives every day. Many of them, I look forward to hearing what you have to say about what that is. But my personal thing is TV. What are we watching on TV? Why are we being entertained by violence? Why are we being entertained by the sight of other people being killed and maimed and raped and wounded? And why are we letting our kids play video games where they see how many cars they can steal and people they can kill along the way? Why are we playing paintball? Bang, bang, you're dead. Why is this fun? A culture of violence. It stops somewhere. And I say it stops right at home, where I don't tolerate mean words. We don't tolerate down talk, talking people down. It has got to be up, because anything else is a recipe for something negative. And I said, we should not encourage our children to play in ways that are destructive either to themselves or to others, even pretend. That's my own contribution to changing the culture of violence. So I'm going to ask that we take a couple of minutes now to do what I call a pledge of victory over violence. This pledge is from an organization that has had millions of people around the world give this pledge. And I'm going to ask my brother if he can come over here and please help me. So, as I said, I've been spending a lot of time learning about the resources that are available that we can bring. And I hope to contribute that in further conversations. I hope to learn more in further conversations. And, I hope to be able to link organization to organizations as I travel around the world, meeting organizations like yourselves, as I hear people say, this is something I need, or this is something that I think would be useful. useful. I hope to be able to bring it back to you. The people who I've been working with in California all these years, I've spoken with them, and they would love to come out and talk to you about how they put a collaborative vehicle together in the community, and perhaps you can learn from them. So, so this isn't the end, but I do want to end with our Victory Over Violence pledge. Will you please join me in standing? We did this at my son's memorial as well. We had about 800 people all doing the Victory Over Violence pledge, and they joined the millions more than done it before. So, if you would please repeat after my brother, and then I will explain what that portion of the pledge is really all about.
I will value my own life.
I will value my own life.
Today, again, I will reach beyond my doubts, taking concrete steps to uncover my unlimited potential. Recognizing that a lack of self-identity and hope for the future are at the root of all violence, I will strive to realize my dreams, even if they seem impossible.
I will respect all life.
I will respect all life.
While protecting and celebrating diversity, I will endeavor to see beyond superficial differences. I will awaken to a deeper sense of interconnectedness with those around me by reflecting on the common humanity I share with all people.
I will actively pursue dialogue.
I will actively pursue dialogue.
With care and consideration for the dignity inherent in others, I will make continual efforts to reach out to people each day, especially those different from myself. Through genuine friendship, I will break through feelings of isolation and hopelessness that can lead to acts of violence.
I will inspire hope in others.
I will inspire hope in others.
With courage, I will resolutely stand up against violence, be it passive or physical, and teach others through my own example. I will support others and encourage them to follow their dreams. Thank you very much.